Tessa,
Caleb,
thanks for being on the Spirit Farm podcast.
it's good to be here.
I mean, you've been in the house before.
I have.
But in the green chairs, with the cameras rolling,
That's right.
producer Paul over there with the headset on.
Yeah.
New experience, and I love that you're here.
Me too. So fun.
So we've known each other a long time.
Very long.
Yeah, you've known me since I was a little kid.
Uh-huh.
I just remember, I don't remember like when we first met or knew each other, but I remember being at Woodleaf.
Yep.
And you being like the work crew boss
Mm-hmm.
in the dining hall.
Yep.
And me being some punk like 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old in that range.
Yep.
And just thinking you were the coolest.
Aw.
You were the coolest thing. And I would always come in and like help like stack some cups or something just to be around you and the cute high school girls.
Oh yeah, you were smart even at like 9 or 7, whatever you were. Yeah. And I taught you to fish.
And you taught me to fish
Yeah.
at Woodleaf?
Yeah, at Woodleaf.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't put the worm on the hook.
I still don't like to put the worm on the hook.
It's
Tessa?
okay. I'll cover you on that. But,
We were catching fish up in Washington this summer.
Wow.
And Henry was all about it. Like totally his mom's side of the family, like Croatian fisherman. He's got some of that blood in him.
Yeah.
And so every single day, multiple times a day, he's like, Dad, let's go fish. Dad, let's go fish. And so we're just like fishing off the bulkhead into the Puget Sound, but catching things, like catching little bullheads. And he wasn't like afraid to take it off. But when it started like, then he was like, Dad, you do it. You do it.
Did you have to man up?
I had to man up.
Yeah.
It was terrible.
Yeah. That's worse than putting the worm on the line. I mean, that takes more.
Yeah.
There's more heebie-jeebies with that.
There's more also because like this thing's life is at stake. Like he's got at least one hook somewhere in his face.
Totally.
And I'm trying to preserve his life and get it out. And oh gosh.
I'm sorry. Way to man up.
I did. I stepped up and did that.
Yeah.
So we've known each other that whole time.
Yes.
And your journey has been a beautiful one. Mm-hmm. Young life.
Yep.
Kind of like what I call like the ambiguous fellowship.
Totally. Right? Was in the Men in Black.
The Men in Black.
Yeah. Secret handshake. No.
So these are the people that do like the prayer breakfast in DC.
Yes.
And then just kind of like love people professionally.
Totally.
Right? How do you talk about
like minister at large in the community would be a simple way of putting it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just having a nonprofit umbrella that you're a full-time lover of people, which we all are, no matter what we're doing.
But you're so good at it that people come around you and say, here's money.
I will pay you to love me.
you just love me and some other, mostly me, but some others too.
Yeah. Loosely. Yeah.
Yeah. So good. And so you're still doing that now?
And now I'm doing my own, like, we're not under the International Foundation anymore. That's what it's called.
The International Foundation.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm now doing it under Allegro with my own ministry.
Okay. And so what are the facets of that? Like, what are you doing with people, mainly women, but also
men and women?
Yeah, everybody. Anybody.
So there's a few different parts. I was trained to be a spiritual director, so I meet with about 30 people a month to talk specifically about where God's at work in their life.
Is that what spiritual direction means?
Yeah.
How do you define it and think about it?
Well, it's been around since, the Catholic mystics, probably prior to that, but Teresa of Avila, there's John of the Cross. They either had spiritual directors or they were spiritual directors. I actually don't love the term director. But
you're directing someone somewhere.
Yeah.
As opposed to guiding.
It's more like even guide sounds funny. It's more like a mentor that's sitting alongside you and helping you see where God's at work in your life. Yep. And a lot of times our spirituality is going on under the surface and we don't speak it. And often when we speak our spirituality, we learn about ways we're thinking that we don't even think about. So asking questions like, when do you feel the most connected to your intimate relationship with Christ? So the whole point of spiritual direction is your experience with Christ. Not the head knowledge needs to be there, but knowledge without action, without experience, isn't the fullness of what Christ has for us. So spiritual direction is someone comes alongside you and is praying for you, caring for you, maybe teaching you some new tools and having intimacy with Christ.
Well, and probably even like just the act of sitting with you and helping you realize how you connect with God.
Totally.
Right? Because like you said, often it's going on under the surface, but there's been some aha moments in my life and Hillary's life where we thought that like this is what we were supposed to do.
Yeah.
But let's just say in Hillary's case, because she's so upfront and obvious about it, where she connects with God best is on a mountain, like
totally
hiking, walking, running. Like that's her time where she feels the most connected. She hears from God and that kind of stuff. So helping people come alongside people just to make those kind of discoveries would be huge.
Well, and most people, when I say, what was the first time you connected or what are ways that you experience God? Not just like some people it's scripture, some people it's being in nature, some people it's music, and not even necessarily worship. It could just be music. For some people, it's trying to be contemplative and quiet. So that's a beautiful thing to kind of explore. I also do it with people that are just at the beginning of wanting to know what spirituality is. And so there's lots of ways to do that.
So those people, right? It seems to me, I'm interested to know your experience. All of us have this eternal spirit, but some of us just didn't grow up recognizing it or putting language to it or thinking that it was important. We just spend so much time in our intellectual brains or whatever. But it seems like pain is often the catalyst for, is there something spiritual going on here? Like when everything else is stripped away, it's like, well, there's got to be something spiritual because otherwise what is life, right?
Exactly. And pain often does, or some people had a pure spirituality as a kid or in high school and then life happened or they had really horrible experiences in conservative church or they had beautiful experiences and then left there. So there's lots of different things. I had a friend recently call me from high school that had a strong faith when she was in elementary school and high school. And she's my age. She's in her 50s. And she said, I was watching a TV show and one of the characters got in a car accident and it kind of shook her. And she said, it made me think of you and how I want to start exploring that again.
Wow.
So you never know. But when someone has maybe no faith or no experience, I start with where do you see the fruits of the Spirit in your life? Faith, hope, kindness, peace. And those are the fruit of God and humanity. So it's so fascinating and I love it. I just love it. And even asking questions like, of the Trinity, which one do you relate to the most? Because here we've got these 3 in 1. Do you relate to the Father? And some people go, I don't know. And I'm like, well, how do you pray? Dear Father, dear God, and usually it changes in seasons, right? When you're a kid and you're hearing Jesus stories, it's probably Jesus. Yeah. And then as you get older, you might get introduced to the Spirit or you need a father. We all need a father, and so maybe the Father takes precedent in the Trinity.
Absolutely. Or someone has like some bad daddy trauma.
Absolutely.
And then they have to steer clear of that designation for a while. And it's more Jesus, or maybe you have, as you mentioned, the really tough experience in the traditional conservative inside the box church. Yeah. And then you're like, no, I just got to go spirit for a while. That's just like everywhere, living, breathing spirit. Yeah. And we do kind of like go in different zones, it seems. Yeah.
If people have really hard daddy issues, they either really need God the Father or they stay clear of him and they relate more to Jesus and the Spirit. So I think as we grow and learn and always know there's more, different parts come in. God's clever.
Yeah. So when you sit down with someone reaches out to you and it's like, hey, I could use some spiritual direction. Yeah. You're like, all right, Zoom call, meet in person, all the above. Yeah. And then what happens? How do you
So when someone comes to me, I basically ask them, what are you looking for? And there's multiple answers. And I explain to them that this is a 10-month commitment for once a month for 60 to 90 minutes. We meet in person or Zoom. I'm doing a ton of Zoom, and it's wonderful that people are comfortable with it now because I can do people out of state. So it's been a beautiful thing that we're all getting so comfortable with this new, frustrating, but beautiful.
Yeah.
So we'll do Zoom calls. We meet once a month, and the first time that we meet, I ask a lot of questions. Part of what I do in spiritual direction is I also do the Enneagram and use it as a tool. So we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
But then you show up every week and you decide, this is what I'm thinking about God right now. Or I'm going through this really hard situation and I don't see him there at all. Or the sky's the limit. And then I might give some tools, but I never give homework. This is about your intimacy with God. I might give some new tools to experience that intimacy. But the whole conversation isn't about life coaching, it's about your faith. And the whole time I get to watch the one I love that loves you working. And I'm fallible and human, but I do the best I can to kind of guide back, where did you experience God in that? And if not, doesn't mean he's not there. Like just asking questions, asking a lot of questions, and praying together, doing contemplative prayer, doing meditative prayer.
What does contemplative prayer mean?
So contemplative prayer is sitting quietly and asking God to enter in. And that can be a really difficult task because we have so many tasks going on in our head. Yeah. So it is being willing to sit and open yourself up to the presence of God. So it's being quiet. Honestly, it's being quiet with the Lord. There's apps and stuff, but it just cracks me up because it's a timer and a pretty little jingle sound at the end. There's an app for that.
A little noise at the end.
There's a little noise. It starts with the scripture.
But we got you. We got your app.
We got an app for you, and it's going to help you a lot.
So how's contemplative prayer or contemplative prayer?
Correct,
different than meditative prayer?
So contemplative prayer, you're literally, I'll just show you. You sit quietly and ask God to be with you. If that's difficult and your mind is going off, keep coming back. It's just like our faith, right? We're always going off.
That's right.
And we're coming back. Yeah. And he is patient and wonderful and loving. Or you can do a mantra during the contemplative prayer. So you're quiet, but you might pick something that would be very encouraging to you. For example, I'm loved by you, Lord. And just say that over and over again. And most people start at like 5 minutes, but varsity level is like 20 minutes, where you can really sit and be. Yeah. And there are a lot of times I leave it, just feel like most things that you do, that it's like, that was all right. Yeah. And then there are other times where I so experienced his presence and it is powerful in my life. You know
what I've noticed? Well, two things. One thing I wanted to say is I've started just like wherever I can breaking out of categories.
Yes.
Because I like to think, you mentioned life coaching. I like to think of this as life coaching too. It's just like, I use the term holistic life coaching because it's
perfect.
Like your spiritual, this connection to God has to be integrated into life coaching, or what is it? I mean, then what are you doing? Right?
Yes, so exactly.
I just kind of break all that down.
Right. But when I'm used to meeting with people from all the stuff I had done before, where I'm listening, I might be giving some advice, I'm talking back what they're thinking. But with spiritual direction, I'm giving some advice, but I just keep asking questions because it's about your intimacy.
Sure.
Then meditative prayer is guiding someone through an experience, picturing them with Christ, picturing them giving God things that are difficult for them, maybe listening a little bit and seeing if they hear something. So that's more of a meditative prayer.
Hillary's had that experience with you, and she meets with you regularly. She's had both of those experiences with you, and just has loved it. We just love you. But Hillary has raved about those times with you, just how meaningful they have been and how she has connected, and you have helped guide her to that place of connection.
Yeah, it's so beautiful because I feel like a facilitator way more than I feel like a director, And so when you do meditative prayer, she's not telling me what she's seeing and experiencing in her prayers. When I'm guiding her through it, she's just doing it, and I get to just lead her through it verbally. So that's been really sweet. The other piece that we often teach is breath work. So I meet with a lot of young moms and people that don't have a second in their day very often, unless they get up at 4:30 or something. So just literally picturing breathing in the love of God and breathing out the stress and picturing where it is in your body. You know, most people carry stress in the same places, you know, in that they might do it between their eyes, their throat, their back, their chest, their stomach. You know, it's like, you know, some of these Eastern thoughts, like, you know, chakras, there really is foundation in all that, right? We've got these areas in our body where we carry things that have power. And so to breathe in the love of God and breathe out the stress or the anxiety, to be in the moment, to be present. So you can do that in your car with 3 kids screaming in the back and throwing Cheerios at you. You know, you can take a second while you're driving with your eyes open.
With your eyes open.
And breathe. And that's been an incredible tool for me in the middle of a trigger of stress or a thought that I know is not true. To be able to go, stop. I'm loved by God. Let's breathe in that healing love and breathe. And the Spirit's within us. And so it's not like he left and you got to breathe him in. There's just more. There's always more.
There's always more. Well, and at the place where you started, just the awareness of what's happening underneath the surface.
Totally.
That at any moment, you know that famous song that the lyric is, "It is well with my soul."
Yeah, absolutely.
I've decided I think it's always well with my soul. I think that it's not well in my head a lot of the time.
Yes.
But if I can get out of my head and under the surface, as you said, and connect to that soul that's always connected, where God's Spirit is accessible, where that when I get there, it's like, oh no, it's well. Like,
well, that head-heart connection is so important. Our feelings aren't always true and our thoughts aren't always true.
Right.
But the hope of Christ is within us. And that hope doesn't change with our circumstances. Now, we may not be feeling hope, right? Like, this stinks.
Right. You might be going through a crappy circumstance.
Horrible.
Yeah.
But to know, because people say all the time, God's good. God's a good God. Well, it doesn't feel like that when you're going through horrible, horrible stuff. And so I'm still in that process of trying to figure that out. Like, what does it mean to have God be good? But I also know his hope within me is pure and real. And I want to follow him despite my circumstances. It's all a mystery. Like, that's what I'm learning the older I get. It's all a mystery. But there's things that I've experienced that are true.
Yeah.
And so part of that is that I know he's there.
Yeah.
So a little vague, but...
Well, but it's mysterious.
It's mysterious.
I mean, the whole thing, the whole spiritual thing.
Yeah.
And yet we know. Like I don't know. There's a percentage of people that doesn't buy into it, but the vast majority of humans are like, no, there's something spiritual going on, and it has to be mysterious. It's not this. It's not this world.
Most people will say they see something in nature, for example, or if they're not comfortable with Jesus, they can see a divine. So, you know, God had us all born in different places. He didn't make a mistake when he had the Hindi born in India. He didn't go, oh, we got to send a bunch of people over there because I messed up.
Because this territory is godforsaken.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so he's given everyone some principles, and there's quite a few that are similar.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm not making any theological statement. I'm just saying he's a mystery.
Yeah.
And we want security and structure.
Yeah. And categories.
We love those, which is funny that I do the Enneagram because there's some categorizing in that. But even that I hold loosely. So anyway, I just think it's so beautiful that there's so much mystery. He spoke in parables for a reason.
Yeah.
You know, and we don't know what that is. He wanted it to be a mystery. So, yeah.
One thing before we move on to the Enneagram, there was one other thing that you said that I really resonated with. When you're doing the meditative prayers personally, or the contemplative prayers personally, you said a lot of the time it's just, whatever, I get up. Some of the time it's these powerful experiences. Same experience for me. But I've noticed when I go a few days in a row where somehow I got derailed and the kids got me like first thing, and then I'm out and we're moving. And there's been like a string of a few days where I haven't really had that time or made that time. Yeah. I feel it then. I feel the lack. Yes. I start to see, man, I was quicker to get agitated. Man, I haven't been frustrated in a while, but I'm feeling frustrated about this silly little thing right now, right? So I notice it when it's missing. Yeah. And that is kind of it's more obvious to me when it's missing than obvious when I'm doing it about how profound it is. It's more just like, it's just happening. I guess it's almost just like me being me and connected to God, better connected to God, or realizing I'm connected to God. But then when I don't pay attention to it, I notice that I'm not at my best. I'm a little bit quicker on the negative things and maybe just not as much at peace.
Being still is powerful. We're in a society that doesn't encourage that. So for some people, they have to move to go get still. Like Hillary hikes to get still. And she can get to the top and breathe and stop, and her mind clears.
It's almost like getting to the top is so hard that you have to sit still because you're exhausted.
Exactly.
It's almost like we have to drive ourselves to the point of needing to sit still to catch our breath.
It's so true.
Isn't that interesting?
It's so true. So making a priority and scheduling quiet, it's not on the top of our list, as a society. But it should be as a human that wants depth and intimacy. And, I have a lot of friends in their 50s that don't want more. They've lived a lot of life and they're like, okay, I'm just going to keep going. This is safe, but I also know how much really deep down we do want more. We're just scared. What does that look like?
When you say more
of God, more to know that we don't have none of my friends would say they have it figured out, but they aren't maybe searching because they're tired. Putting yourself in a place where you are open to learning more, even going, I'm excited to learn more about God. There's no way I have him down. I want to know every nook and cranny. I want him to come into every room. I want him within me, and see what happens.
Wouldn't you say that that's also connected to that pain thing? It's just like going through pain, tragedy, difficulty, unexpected, feeling out of control. Like those are the times where I'm like, damn, I need more.
Right.
Like, because maybe we don't want more, but we get into places where, oh man, I need more. Otherwise, what am I going to do?
Well, you look at our culture and compare it to maybe some of the African cultures. And I've been in church with friends in Africa, and they've got poverty and bad drinking water, and they are literally dancing and praising for 2 hours to the point where I'm like, I'm exhausted. I thought I liked to dance, but I'm exhausted.
I got to sit down somewhere.
I got to sit down. This is like a little too much. But, and I'm thinking, we don't do that.
No.
We can control so much in our society that they understand what the goodness of God is. It's that he's with them, not that he fixes everything and makes it perfect. But in our society, we can fix a lot. So we work pretty hard to control our environment. So that surrender is much harder for us as a culture than it is for other cultures.
Totally true. We've become self-sufficient because we're so capable.
We're so freaking capable. We are.
To our own detriment.
Exactly. But we like it. I mean, I like it. I like that I have medical care. I like that I can get 3 opinions on something. I like that I can replace a limb and do all these things. It's amazing. I can't personally replace. I mean, I watched a lot of Grey's Anatomy, but I still can't do it. So, yeah, I hope I don't need to. But Yeah.
So the Enneagram.
The Enneagram. Isn't that what we came to talk about?
We came to talk about all the things. I love the things that you've said so far.
Yeah.
And then you layer in. So this, what we've talked about so far, I feel like is just who you've been, who you've always been, and then like a deepening version of that.
Yes.
And then you layer on the Enneagram.
Right.
Why? When did that become a thing for you?
So about 5 years ago, I was married for 32 years. I had a really beautiful life, and my husband went through a crisis, and it pulled the rug out from under us, both of us, and we both started our therapeutic journeys in it. And it took about 4 or 5 years for us to get to a place where we ended up getting a divorce, and that was very traumatic. But I did a lot of soul searching during that time and continue to. But during that time, I had been exposed to the Enneagram before, but I took a test again, maybe 5 months after things started imploding. And I looked at it and went, oh my gosh, I just saw a truth in it that I hadn't seen before because I wasn't paying attention really. And so I saw how it showed me what my motives were for my behavior. And it surprised me. And I thought I was a really self-aware human that helped other humans become more self-aware. And it surprised me. Like an example is it said that like the number 9, which is the number I use the most, they like to get distracted by mindless things. So I was like, oh my gosh, I can play Candy Crush for an hour. Like that is a mindless thing that I really enjoy doing. And I'm doing that because I want peace. And doing something else might not bring me peace.
Interesting.
It's mindless. So it led me on this journey of looking more into it. I didn't have a lot of energy to become better because I was going through so much. Yeah. But it started me on this journey, and I got so interested, and I started seeing how me being aware of those motives, awareness is the beginning of change and growth.
Absolutely.
Without awareness, our therapists will all tell us that, and they told me that. Without it, we can't grow and become more. And not to beat ourselves up, I'm very against that. We are all uniquely and beautifully made. And I just want to, the more word again, I want to become more of who I am.
Love it.
In this process. So the Enneagram was a tool for me in that.
So I have done the Myers-Briggs.
Yes.
I'm an INTJ, by the way.
Excellent.
I've done the DISC.
Yep.
I have done
Strengths
Finders.
Yeah.
And then most recently been interested and intrigued by the Enneagram.
Right.
And I don't know why, but it just seems like that's trending right now.
It is.
And there are a lot more people talking about that. What's a distinctive from the other things that I've named and whatever else that's out there? What's distinct about it? How do you view it? Where does it become helpful?
So all of those tools are helpful. And that's all they are tools.
Yeah.
But they're helpful. And the difference between the Enneagram and all those other tests you named is those are identifying our behavior. So if you pictured an iceberg, and on the surface is all of our behavior. But what's under the surface is this huge mass of ice that no one's seeing. And in that area, we have who we were kind of created and born to be, like maybe the healthiest version of us, the design God had for us, the individual amazingness of how he made each of us. I think I said this to you when we went over the Enneagram, but I'm so blown away that no one ever will be like Caleb and never was like Caleb, that no one will have your thumbprint. Even identical twins don't have the same thumbprint. And I just think that's spectacular. Yeah. And so we have this essence of who we were made to be. And then we have nurture that comes in. And we maybe get fears. We get insecurities. Yeah. Then we start making decisions about what's important to us based on a lot of times those motivations of what we're scared of. Yeah. And then all of that affects our behavior, which is our personality. So the Enneagram is a test that shows us what's the motivation behind our behavior. Yes. So that's what those numbers represent.
Where we tend to go, that what's driving the behavior that we're seeing.
Yes.
And then you mentioned, just to kind of color the context for what you've already brought up, that when you want peace because you're struggling in some way, that you go to Candy Crush.
Right.
And that's what
it's deep.
I get it. I mean, I go to watch football or
right, exactly.
Or ESPN or I just want to check out because I'm motivated by peace too. I'm like, I do not want to be stressed out. I want to move toward peace. And so I find that when I am not operating at my best, and I'm not driven and I'm not doing the things I want to do, that my default is to go lay down. And I have so many things to do that it's overwhelming. So I go lay down.
Exactly.
And so it's kind of a similar thing that you're describing.
Yeah. So we all use all the numbers. So if you don't need to take a test to figure out your number, but if you do, one of these very simple tests that I had you take, it breaks down the percentages of the numbers that you use the most based on the test. And so you can see, oh gosh, I use these 3 numbers the most. So I use one, let's say your highest numbers were a 3, 7. What was the other one for you? I can't remember. Let's say it's a 2. Okay.
Yep.
3, 7, and 2. So a 2 is a helper. Their primary motivation is I am not okay unless the people around me are loved. So these are the helpers. They become helpers out of role. But a lot of people truly, they're not happy unless everyone's happy around them, which isn't realistic, right? There's no way to do that. But 2s are very selfless. They don't think about themselves very often. So they don't get to be the fullest version of them if they're not functioning in a healthy way, because their motivation is always, I'm okay when you're okay.
Yeah.
So a 3 is an achiever. So they want to have value and
That's by far my highest one.
That's your highest one.
So I'm driven to feel valuable.
Yes.
Feel significant.
Correct. Yeah. So when you are going through something really difficult, you're going to go for what right now would make me feel the most valuable, the most worthwhile.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the 7 is the enthusiast. And they fill their life with adventure and fun and new. And that makes them feel distracted and good because they don't really want to be in touch with their core feelings and what's going on in their heart, because that is painful. That can be really painful. So 7s, they're just always up for and it's also a beautiful part of who they are because they get to go explore and they bring people with them. They're charismatic. They're a Pied Piper.
They're fun to have around.
They're fun, but they have hard time staying in relationships, in a job. A lot of 7s don't work in a job more than 4 or 5 years. And there's nothing wrong with that. Lots of people are great starters. But how good to know that?
Yeah.
Like, am I changing this job because I'm in a place of fear and insecurity and I want something new to feel better? Or am I changing it because it's the healthiest thing for me? See, so when you know that motivation, it's so helpful.
So helpful. Okay, so we've covered 2, 3, 7.
Yes.
We might as well just hit all of them.
We'll go all of them. Okay, so the 1 is the good person or the perfectionist. They really...
Now, not good person like other people. The rest of the 8 are bad people.
No, but they
care. They really want to be...
They want to be a good person and be of value to life. That's their motivation. Like
contributor to society.
Contributor. And they believe they think through what's best. And so they are always going, oh my gosh, what's right and wrong? They feel safe in structure. They very often say things like, well, if everyone just did it the right way, none of this would happen. The time to start this podcast is 10 o'clock. So why you came at 10:10, I really don't know. That's not the starting time. The starting time is 10. You should be here at 10. They're safe in that structure of right and wrong. And that does bring you safety, right? When we have all the rules and we obey them, that is safe. It feels safe. But they also can be very unsatisfied and very critical. No one's harder on the 1 than the 1.
than themselves. Totally.
So when you're married to a 1, you have to take that in consideration, which, by the way, this is such a good tool for couples, because when you understand the motive of the person you're with, it's easier to have compassion.
Yeah.
And know how to speak to them.
Yeah. So how would you speak to that person? Because I'm thinking of several.
Yeah.
And it can be very difficult, especially when that gets then ingrained, connected to, supercharged by their spirituality. Then it's like,
no, it can be dangerous.
My little Christian club is the right one.
Yes.
And the way I do church and think about the Bible and is the right way. And all these other people is the wrong way.
Yes.
They can be the hyper organized, meticulous, labels on everything, right? And so how do you engage with that person and help them not be so tightly wound and think that their whole identity is revolved in being good?
Well, you can't change them, but you can change how you communicate with them. So it could be, it sounds like when we aren't in a structure, that really stresses you out. So they can feel understood by you. Like and to ask questions, does it scare you to think what you believe isn't right? Does it? And they'll go, of course, and then praying for them and just asking God to enter in with them. Say, can we pray together? And not to demean what they believe is what makes them feel secure. Even in our faith, we all believe what we need, right? So that's why there's always more. Because if we're growing, hopefully, we're seeing different aspects of God, because we believe in the scripture that builds our opinion. Builds
our sense of identity and sense of safety and sense of being right.
Yes. So we all do that. I mean, for sure, no question. But with the 1s, you want to have compassion, because when you have a more open view and they're so structured, it's really easy to feel sorry for them. Like, oh
or
my
get
gosh,
irritated.
Get really irritated. I don't want to work with the 1.
Yeah.
1s very often are the ones in nonprofit because they want to change the world. Literally, I did a training with Saving Innocence, which is a child trafficking organization that you're very familiar with.
Yeah.
And the majority of the people involved in that ministry were 1s, 3s. Like, they want to make change for the world. They want to make the world a better place. 2s, like, they're willing to go on the street, put themselves in difficult situations because it's right. It's the right thing to do. So there are people that they really want to make the world better.
Yeah.
I bet you there's a lot of politicians that are 1s. If, there's right and wrong and I want to help and I want to fix, if they have a pure heart and their motive.
Well, and maybe part of the reason why in politics things are so divided, because 1s tend to be so divided.
Yes, they see it black and white, and it's hard for them maybe to adjust. But a healthy in any number is spectacular. We have the good and the harder
So whatever
sides.
we are, if I gravitate more toward 3, someone gravitates more toward whatever we are, that's just our bent.
Yes.
But there's a healthy version of us and a less healthy version of us, right?
Correct. And so as we're getting healthier, we might not be as recognizable in our number. Because the things we usually recognize are the more interesting, like a 9, for example, me. I just want everything to be good. So cup half full, everything's great. I'm not digging in. And 9s have a hard time confronting people. They don't want conflict. So as a 9, if I go to someone and confront them in as loving way as I can and say, this was hard for me. And someone that knows the Enneagram would not assume, they would not experience me as a 9 if I did that. So we start becoming more unrecognizable because we're not showing those telltale signs of where we go when we're insecure. Or when we have fear.
That's important to know. So
yeah.
So the deeper we get into this, the healthier we get, the more mature we get, the more confident we get, the less extreme whatever our number is.
For sure.
Yeah. Okay, that's good.
So you want to keep going on the numbers?
Let's hit 4.
4, I love 4s. They're the romantics, the individualists. Their desire is to be unique. And different from everyone else. To be like everyone else is not the goal.
Not the goal.
No, the goal is to be unique, to be creative. They are the romantics. They love they get really into things and really excited about them. They're daydreamers very often. And if a 4 can put legs on their dreams, it's really fun to watch. So they love movies. They want life to be like a movie. My daughter is a 4, and when she was in junior high, she was going from private to public. In high school, it was going to be public. And she literally thought it, in some ways, that it was going to be like High School Musical. Like she's going to show up and Zac Efron's going to come out.
Doors are going to swing open.
Yeah, and it's going to be, she's the new girl in school. And it wasn't quite like that. A little bit disappointing, And then she had a decent voice. And so she's like, Mom, honestly, serious, am I going to be able to make it on American Idol? And I would be like, there's a lot of really talented people. You never know. I'm trying not to squash her dreams at 10, but she dreamt that stuff, and I wanted her to have those dreams. Yeah. Now she's in New York and a nurse. Talk about adventure,
No kidding.
She's living in Greenwich Village and on the same street as Alec Baldwin. I mean, all her dreams are coming true. It's fantastic. And she's had this crazy COVID adventure that's insane.
No kidding.
So
let's pause right there and talk about wings, because I'm, according to the test, I am a 3 with a 4 wing.
Correct.
Which is interesting, because I remember, well, for most of my life growing up that I remember, I am the achieving, responsible, because I'm the oldest, whatever. But I'm drawn to the eccentric. I'm drawn to the more
dreamy,
like your daughter that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
To the people that are just themselves, because there's something in me that just really wants to be that myself, unique, explore that, find that. So talk about how your primary number and then the wing on the side that you move toward.
So the Enneagram is not simple. There's a lot of tests that are more simple. The DISC test is easy to understand. It's put together.
These 4 colors.
Yeah, exactly. The Enneagram, I'll just tell you really quickly the parts. You've got your 9 numbers. You've got your 2 wings. So there's a number on each side of your number. So you're a 3. Your wings are a 2 and a 4. Then we've got, with each number, there are 3 subtypes. So we're not even going to go there today. And then each number has another number they go to in stress and another number they go to in growth or rest, meaning when you're feeling strong and confident and you're not as complicated in the moment. And then there's 3 centers. There's 3 numbers in each center, and it's the head, heart, and gut. So that's an overview of all of it.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It's a lot. But the wings are very significant. So you use both of your wings. So for you, you're a 2 and a 4. You identify a little more strongly with the 4 wing, but you're a helper too. And how beautiful for that 3. We haven't gone over the 3 as much, did we? Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. So the 3 is an achiever. They want to be worthwhile. They want to accomplish goals. That's really important to make them feel solid and secure. So to be a 3 that wants to accomplish goals and to consider others, that's the 2, the helper, is beautiful combination. Like talk about a servant leader, a leader. I don't even love that term, leader, but we need them. It's fine. So, but to be a servant leader, I think to me is way more the heart of the gospel.
Yeah.
And then to have that 4 where you're dreaming, such a beautiful combination of numbers. Yeah. So a lot of our behavior is often shown in our wings.
Okay.
The 2 and the 4 for you in particular.
Okay. Okay. So then the 4, we got the 5.
Okay. So the 5 is the wise person. They value information above all else. Information helps them feel secure. So for example, people that are 5s very often are professors, engineers, accountants. Just information is key to them. They love reading, investing. They love being alone very often. So for them, if they're walking into a meeting, if they don't have the right information, it's just going to be so stressful for them. But their heart, because they have the 4 on one side and the 6 on the other. So the 4 is the individualist, the romantic. And then the 6 is the loyalist. They can be very devoted, amazing, people that can be in relationship with other people. And then when you learn more about the subtypes, you'll see the different types of 5s.
Okay.
So you can line 100 people up of the same number and go, they're all so different. They're all so different. People always go, you're pegging me to one number. I'm like, there's like so many numbers. So don't worry about that. You're
There's
different.
so many versions
There's so
of
many
that number.
combinations. Correct.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So then you mentioned the 6 briefly.
Yes.
Loyalist.
Loyalist.
How else?
So loyalists, it's about trust. That's their
Trust
core
is valuable.
motivation. Trust. So they have a hard time trusting.
Yeah.
So they can walk into a room and they're scanning who am I going to spend time with in this room? Who can I trust in this room?
This is Hillary. Hillary identifies more in the 6 with a strong 7.
Very strong 7 wing. Yeah.
But she has that. And she, when we met together, she made the comment that, she walks into a room or she's with people. She's always just underneath the surface, always just making data points, just deposits of observing people, person. Can I trust them? Can I trust them? Can I trust them?
Yeah.
Can I trust them?
The 6s are spending a lot of time thinking and evaluating to see if they can be safe in that situation. I have a friend who is the safety police, and she's a 6 because she wants everyone to be safe. So 6s often think about worst case scenarios. And because of that, when they go through really hard things, they often are really calm because they've already thought it through. They've come up with the plan A, B, and C of what could go wrong. So they're prepared, so they feel secure. 6s need preparation. They need to feel like they've prepared for things. They're very trustworthy people. My daughter's a 6. People love them, are drawn to them, and feel safe with them. But they don't necessarily feel safe with everybody. You
have 3 daughters, we should point out. So
yes.
When you identify them, you could be talking about one of 3.
One of 3, sorry. They aren't multiple personalities. But I have an 8, which we'll go over. She's my oldest. 4 is the middle, and the youngest is a 6.
Okay.
And I would also say you're experimenting with these tools in your younger years for a long time.
What works for me? What gives me a sense of
my daughter,
security?
My youngest, when she took the test when she was 20, and she tied with 4 numbers. She's figuring it out. So your kids could take it, but you'll learn way more about kind of the rest of their life tools when they're about 24, 23. Then some kids are very, you could say, oh my gosh, I don't think they're going to change. But usually it's not as helpful to take it until you get to a different, older age.
Yeah, that makes sense. That 24, 25 range is probably when personalities start to form a little bit more so.
Totally. Yeah.
So and then we mentioned the 7.
7
is the life of the party.
Life of the parties. Yeah, they need excitement to feel safe. They need new, fun adventure.
That's right. And you said that they might not keep a job long, but they're starters.
They're good starters very often. It's a relief to 7s to find out that, because they feel often so flaky. But again, what's your motivation? Is your motivation for change healthy? Is it growth? Or is it, I'm bored, I don't feel safe, I need to move?
Just there's health and there's unhealth in all of these numbers.
Correct.
So if it's fear, if it's insecurity, if it's whatever, then we might want to lean in a little bit further. If it's adventure, if it's just, this is just who I am. Okay, move on to the next thing.
Exactly. So they often can get really enthusiastic about things. They're usually jacks of all trades, not an expert in anything, but know a little about everything. And they're ferocious readers. They're often very intelligent because they get excited about everything. So they learn about a lot. And so they can become hoarders a little bit because they'll get really into guitars. And then they want the best guitars and every guitar. And they're just, and they're Pied Piper, so people will follow them. So if there's a thing they're into, they can get everyone around them to do it. They're charming. They're so fun. I love the 7s in my life, and I have a high 7. I have a high score in 7.
Yeah,
so I enjoy it too.
Yeah.
I appreciate my 7s big time.
Yeah, yeah. I'm thinking of a good friend of ours, a good friend of Paul and mine too, that we worked with, who's probably a 7. and he can walk into a room and just win the room. And
yes.
And he's very intelligent.
Yep.
But mostly, with data, with information, with knowledge, but mostly when it comes to people.
Yes.
Like he understands how to engage with all kinds of different people.
Which you wouldn't think. Like they can be chameleons, but it's because they're enthusiastic and they go, oh, I can relate to them. I know how to relate to them. They're smart. They're
Super
very smart. So they're fantastic people.
8.
So my oldest daughter is an 8. Yep. She's a challenger. Challenger. So their goal is control. That's really when they feel safest, is when they have control of a situation. So 8s can steamroll over you. That's kind of the hard part of 8s, but they also are defenders of the weak and the unjust. They also do a lot of nonprofit work because they're ready to storm the castle, like for the good thing. If an 8 challenges you, you got to be prepared for that. Like it's not easy because they'll go after you. They can steamroll. So with the 8, it's really helpful to have compassion for when they're steamrolling. They're scared of something, and so. If you're married to an 8, which, they can be the most loving, committed, amazing people, but when they lose it, you got to go, oh, something, instead of going, they're being an ass, to go, they're really scared of something right now, or they're feeling insecure. What is going on? So to go, what's going on? And usually in the moment with the 8, it's not easy to have that conversation. So it might be a couple hours later. What happened? What was going on that you felt so out of control? Were you scared of something? What had happened right before? So how beautiful and compassionate if someone's willing to evaluate.
Engage that way. Yeah, because just imagine a country that's led by an 8. If you can hypothetically.
And there's probably a lot, honestly. I'm not saying anything, but.
And they're not willing to, have a conversation.
Well, dictators. Clearly.
Right.
So.
Okay, 9. The final. The 9.
The 9 is the peacemaker. They want peace at all costs. They're often very relational people. So they can look like a 2 sometimes because the peace is their goal. The 2, the other person's happiness is their goal. The 9, it's my peace. That's the goal. And I don't want to feel yucky thoughts or feelings at my least resourceful, my least healthy. I don't want to be I don't want to be in conflict. I want things to be good. So I'm good. Like a 9 never wants to decide where you're going for dinner. It's like, and any 9 you ask, they'll say, I really don't care. But as I was growing, in learning about this, I started realizing, well, if I had to pick, where would I want to go? Starting to pay attention to what are my needs? What are my likes? What are my dislikes? And I knew a lot of them, but in the areas that I found myself I don't care because it would be stressful. We were naming our dog 11 years ago, and everyone wrote 3 names on a list. And if any one of them matched between 5 of us, we were going to pick that name. Well, we wrote 4 or 5 lists and nothing was matching. And finally I was like, I'm out. This is too stressful for me. I don't care what the dog's name is. I did care, but I wasn't going to fight. Boo. Boo, because my daughter went up to him and goes, hello, Boo. Because at the time that was an expression, you're my boo.
Yeah.
So we got Boo. I wanted Hazel or Stella or an old lady name.
Yeah. But you weren't going to win because you wanted to keep the peace.
I didn't care about winning because peace was more important for me. Than the name, me winning in the name. But my daughter that named it is the 8. Yeah. So she won.
Okay. So, the 8. And probably didn't steamroll it. It sounds like there was a nice,
actually really sweet how it happened.
Okay. So we're whatever we are, and people can figure that out. And probably they've already self-selected based on your outstanding description of all 9 of those.
Well, people right now are listening and saying, I think I'm one of those 2, and my husband's for sure that, my mother-in-law is for sure that. That happens real common, but we should focus on ourselves.
Yeah. Okay, I was just going to steer it in a different direction, so you redirect me if need be. I was just going to say, how can we best engage with someone else with this data.
Yes.
But maybe we should start by, maybe the better first question would be, how can we use this to become more healthy, become healthier, more confident versions of ourselves? Let's start there.
Well, I think the first part is not to beat ourselves up when we see these negative things that, oh my gosh, I play Candy Crush for an hour, and just laugh at it and go, yeah, I use that as a tool to escape. And sometimes that's fine. I should play Candy Crush. That's why so many people play it. It's good. But not to beat yourself up on the negative things, and to start feeling like, I'm curious. Walk into, I'm curious. How does this play out in my life? Not, I got to make a list and start fixing this stuff.
I find that helps just across the board.
Yes.
When we're less judgmental of ourselves or others, and we just get curious.
Correct.
Like my issue, this struggle, this thing, this pattern, this thing I'm afraid of happening. Oh, let me be curious about that. Like, what's going on there?
Yeah, because with curiosity, you're not putting this pressure of perfection. It's really hard for the one to just be curious.
The one,
because they want to fix it, because they want,
for sure.
They just want it to be fixed.
Yeah.
The 5 and the 7, they're great at being curious. They want to know more. Maybe not the depths of themselves. So that might be the push for them, but they're curious about everything. So for some of us, it's easier to be curious than others. But I would say start with curiosity with your goal to be the healthiest, best version of what God created you to be. And they flow in and out. We flow in and out, I would say minute to minute, with healthy motivations and not so healthy motivations, depending on where we're at in that time. What's going on? What's the difficult things? What are the positive things? But that awareness can help us go, oh, there it is. We talked about that earlier. There's that thing I do.
So then when you start there and you're curious and you're like, oh, there's that thing. Like I had a ton of stuff that I needed to do. It was an evening where I should have just I wanted to, somewhere inside me, get after the tasks, but there were so many of them, and I hate administrative types of things that I just laid down. And I just laid down and watched ESPN.
Right.
And I was like, oh, there's that. There's that.
With that example, is it bad that you're laying down for a period of time to watch ESPN on a stressful day?
Probably not.
No. How long is not healthy?
Yeah.
So that's what you need to evaluate. There's nothing wrong with watching ESPN on a really stressful day. But set a timer for 30 minutes and then go back and do the hardest thing on your list first and start going after it. That's healthier, right? Balance. There's balance. And a lot of therapists now use the Enneagram because it's such a good tool for motivation. And really, that's what therapists are trying to help us with. What are the reasons why we do what we do, and go from there? So I always say, when you want to grow, throw everything at it. Go to a therapist, do spiritual work and even medical work. I've had people come to me really stressed, thinking thoughts they've never thought before. And I thought it was a spiritual issue. And then they went to a naturopath and found out their levels were so gone. They had no serotonin. They were totally depressed, and it was causing them to go off the rails. And here I thought it was a spiritual issue. So now I'm at the point where if someone wants to grow, even going to the doctor and just getting a well check, because a lot of people don't do that anymore, that can be super helpful. And telling them, I've been having weird thoughts, or I'm so negative, or, throw everything at it. Spiritual, medical, psychological.
Yeah. I like it.
For holistic health.
Holistic health.
Yeah.
That's the name of the game.
Yeah.
That's who we are. Talking about our numbers and being who we are is a body, a mind, a heart, and a soul. Yeah.
So with the awareness, you start paying attention. And then you can set goals. It's helpful to have someone to talk to about that. So as a tool, it's great when you do this with your partner, because then you have that language and you can go, well, isn't that a lot like what the 3 does? Like what's a lot of these websites and podcasts will tell you like the healthier version of that, the opposite behavior. So what's the virtue and what's the vice of those things? So we want the virtue.
Yeah.
And so, the virtue of this is me paying attention to my motivation. So a 2, for example, that's a helper. Maybe you guys have another baby, which I know is not necessarily in the works, but maybe it is. I don't know.
Please, God, no.
No, okay. So I think Hillary's really cool, and I I could have two motivations. I could have many motivations, but one of them could be, I really want Hillary to think I'm cool, and I want her to be happy, and I want her maybe to be a little codependent on me and need me to meet her needs. So I'm going to bring a meal over, and I'm going to bring her a gift and the bottle of wine she likes, and I'm going to do all that because I really want her to appreciate me and want to be friends with me. So that would be maybe a less resourceful motivation for the two. And they feel happy when Hillary's happy. So that's kind of nice. But the other piece is, I love Hillary and I just want to give to her freely with no expectation. It's a pretty amazing way to give.
Yeah.
So usually both of those are all mixed up together.
Just messed up.
Yeah.
Kind of trying to sort out what am I really being motivated by here?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So when someone's really clear with me about their motivation, I encourage them not to do the things. Say no in that situation. And that's really hard for it too. But are you doing it and you're exhausted and you're bitter? If that's the case, take a break and let's get to the right motivation again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So work on you first.
And it sounds like you've referenced podcasts, blog sites. There's just tons of resources out there, books that can help you identify yourself.
Correct.
And then the healthier version of you, and then the less healthy version of you.
Yes.
To help you move in that healthy direction.
Correct. Yeah. So there's a lot, and we can go over those at the end or something.
So where do you see this going for you? You have a passion for the spiritual direction, the Enneagram, you're helping people, you're doing the spiritual directing for individuals. Kind of what's the path? Do you have a plan, a vision for the future?
Yeah, I have two things going on. I've got my nonprofit ministry that is spiritual direction. With that, I use the Enneagram with my people I meet with. And then I am in the process of starting day retreats to experience Christ, or weekend retreats or evenings, that kind of a thing. I also do women's ministry, so I do nights for women and things like that. But because I really have a heart for community along all this. But
when you say community, like bringing some women together, like a women's group, and helping them build their relationships.
I lead 2 small groups with young women that are young moms, and I've been doing that for, I think, 10 and 14 years with the same groups, and I just adore them, and never would I have thought they would have lasted this long. My other groups didn't, just by the way. So if anyone has small groups, don't think that always happens. It doesn't. But and then on the side, I do Enneagram training for individuals, couples, and small businesses.
Got it. So a business can bring you in and say, hey, we want to work together better as a team.
Totally.
Where a lot of businesses have used the Myers-Briggs and the DISC in the past.
Correct.
But saying, hey, this Enneagram thing, there's something to it. Could you come in and train our team?
Yes.
How to use this
Yeah.
tool?
So in that case, in a business setting, I do a one-on-one coaching session with each employee.
Okay.
And then we usually do a 2-part training where we go, especially in small groups, it's the most powerful. In teams, we go over all the numbers. So everyone gets to learn about all the numbers. They already know about their own from our coaching time. And then we have people speak as to how they relate to that number in their work setting and talk about what communication helps them the most. So, for example, when I did it with Saving Innocence, one of the managers is a 1, and she didn't like it when employees would come in for a purpose but just chit chat the whole time. She needed to get to the issue at hand first, and then she's willing to talk about your weekend. So it's super helpful for everyone to realize, if I want to communicate the best with my boss, I need to get to the matter. And we can talk later in the lunchroom about my weekend, what happened, or whatever's going on. So it can be very significant in your work setting, and understanding the people that you're working with side by side and the people that are in a supervisory position. Yeah. And then we do activities where, there's a mat with numbers, and you start out on your number, but then let's say we come up with a situation at work, and then we have you stand on other people's numbers and try to think of what would their response be to that.
Smart.
Yeah. So it can be a really, really helpful tool. There's large companies now like the Staples Center, for example, they have, I think it's a DISC person on staff full time, and it's part of their culture.
Wow.
So when you come in, you learn your DISC assessment
right out of the gate,
and you learn those on your team, and you go through training with DISC. And so it's the cultural conversation at the Staples Center. So it's pretty cool, to have a desire for people to understand each other and work well together.
It really is.
I wouldn't use the Enneagram ever for hiring.
Not for hiring. Why?
No, because it's about your motivation and it's not just your personality. So you can take other tests for hiring, but this is a tool for growth. It's not a tool for identifying placement in a business.
Okay. If someone was listening who has a small or medium-sized business and was interested in talking to you about that, would you want them to email you? Yeah,
we'll put it maybe on the site or whatever, but they can email me or text me.
Okay.
Either way.
And then, so we've talked about, the coaching that I do and now beginning to train other coaches.
Right.
I really want to have you engaged, maybe even in the future, doing a session with someone who signs up for coaching right out of the get-go.
Be amazing.
Right from the jump, so that then you can give me or you can give these other coaches tools on how best to work with this person based on their motivations.
Yeah.
That's going to be fun.
That's my jam.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love getting to know someone and seeing them kind of light up when they're learning something about themselves they didn't know. It's so great one-on-one because it's not very threatening because I'm not assuming they're exactly like this number. I'm asking so many questions. Which parts of this do you relate to? No one gets to decide what your number is, just you. Okay, so I don't know what I could say, Caleb, I experience you as a 3. I experience Hillary as a 7. But her motivation for her behavior is trust.
It's more the 6.
She's the 6. But I wouldn't have known that, unless she's the one that gets to decide that.
Well, and the interesting thing, since you bring it up, is maybe in terms of personality or whatever, she's more of a 7.
Yeah.
But because of some nurture, some life experiences, at some pivotal moments as a kid, she really needs that loyalty, that trust for security. Yeah. Because of some things that happened, and that's why that's so
Exactly. Our childhood, I would say, in an enormous way, shapes which number we go to the most. Yeah, our experience. Yeah.
Tessa, thank you.
You're welcome.
So good.
It was so good. Good to be with you.
Good for me, encouraging to my soul. So great to have you talk about your genius and your journey and your life and how you're now serving so many other people. I appreciate it so much. And I know that it has meant a lot to people who are watching and listening. And I know that a bunch of them are already kind of searching for an Enneagram book or a tool or a website.
Absolutely.
And we'll explore this again. We'll have you back on and we'll take it in some new directions and continue to tease out this Enneagram and how we can put it to use.
Great.
Is there anything else that you wanted to say? Anything that we missed or anything that was there?
It is the oldest tool that's out there.
It's ancient, isn't it?
Yeah, it's got really deep roots. The Desert Fathers did a version, not the test and all that, but they did a version of it to help people when they're trying to do contemplative prayer, have their mind clear and not be distracted by the things going on. And in the last 30 years, it was brought to the United States, maybe a little more like 40, 50 years. And then it's been in this form for about 30 years. So it's a pretty old tool, but it's on the radar right now.
It's on the radar. Yeah. It's relevant. It's trending.
Yes.
And it's
trending.
Useful.
Yeah. It's a great tool.
Yeah.
And that's all it is. It's not pegging you as you're this personality but it's a helpful tool to understand each other.
Yeah. Well, thank you for how you've used it to help me. Thank you for how you invest in my wife, Hillary.
That's easy.
We love you so much.
Too.
And thank you for being courageous and willing to lean into the pain of this last season to let it transform you so that you can serve so many more people.
Thank you.
It's beautiful to see.